Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Jayhawker podcast. We got a big one for you today. The man himself, head coach Bill Self, is going to join us as we're just getting started with the 2024-2025 KU men's basketball season.
This is the Jayhawker podcast.
And we are presented, as always, by the University of Kansas Health System, by Black & Veatch, and by the Next Generation 10G Network, only from Xfinity. The future starts now. All right, Coach, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. Excited for Friday.
Yeah, man, a way to start things off. I know you've already had a couple of exhibition games and a regular season game against Howard, but Friday night, man, North Carolina coming to Allen Fieldhouse. This is what it's all about, right?
Well, yeah, it's probably too early to play the game, to be honest with you, and I'm sure Hubert would say the same thing. But we'll find out a lot about our team. The Arkansas exhibition game, Nate, actually helped us a lot because regardless of shorthanded or not or whatever, they put it on us pretty good athletically, and I think it was a good wake-up call and a lot of great teaching points through that. So hopefully we've improved since then, but we're going to have to be really good because Carolina's got some real guys. They got pros that don't even play a lot. At least they haven't yet, but they will be. They will play a lot as they get more acclimated. So it'll be a interesting game, but it should be fun for everybody.
Over the past, I don't know how long it's been, 10 years or so, at least my memory tells me, we see big matchups with Kansas early in the season like this, but it seems like they're always neutral site games, tip-off classic.
Well, last year, last year may have been the exception. Connecticut coming in, and then going to Indiana. We're trying to do home and homes, a couple of home and homes each year. We're going to Missouri. We're playing at Creighton, be part of the Big East Challenge. So there's some, got NC State coming here. There's some good games on our schedule, without question. And philosophically, how do you want to do this moving forward? I think the neutral site games are going to be important, but they need to become money games in some way, shape, or form because of the rev share and how do you get against that? Because if you can't do that, you're better off playing home games because at least you get the gate. But college athletics is a different time that you're not going to do as many things for experiences as what we have done in the past. We're going to do things, okay, how does this cut into the bottom line? How can we help the bottom line? And certainly playing a game, a home-and-home series with North Carolina does wonders for that because that makes your home schedule to go along with all the conference games and you're still playing – you're potentially playing 5 top 10 teams in the country during your conference season. Of course, all won't be at home, but during your conference season, and you throw games in like this, whether it be for our fan base of Missouri or North Carolina, NC State, and then after that, we got to worry about how are we going to pay the bills.
When you say like experiences, you're talking about in the past maybe playing a neutral site game where, hey, the kids get to go see the stock market exchange and things like that.
Or Maui.
Oh, okay.
Or Bahamas. So those games, you stop and think about it, the cost to go to those places and the guarantee you get for going to those places, and you got to pay it out to 8 teams or whatever, and you're taking away 3 home games. So, how do we play a neutral site game like Duke? Duke is part of an MTE. So we'll play Duke in Vegas. The other game will be at home. It costs us to travel to Vegas, but it's in the T-Mobile. It'll be sold out. It'll be a split gate, and we actually make money off of that as opposed to losing money, playing those other games away from home. Maybe not the same experience for the kids, but financially, everybody's going to look to do things like this moving forward.
That's really interesting. I mean, there's so many things that are changing about the landscape right now. And I was thinking about this line of questioning with you because, looking at your squad this year, you got newcomers coming from all over the place. Going to the Big 12 Media Day, it was evident every single team.
Yeah.
It's not just one team. And I was listening during the Howard game. Big Dub was talking about you're bringing in guys now that have to unlearn old habits from a program they were at and learn new habits. How are you finding that process right now?
I actually have, I've always thought that was the same thing with junior college kids a little bit too. I always thought junior college kids, when you brought them in, now granted, there are exceptions, but really by Christmas is when they're going to be reacting instead of thinking. You tell A.J. Storr or Rylan Griffin or Zeke Mayo or Shaq or whoever it is. No. How you did that before is fine, but this is how we do it. And this is what we believe. And instinctively, for them to do it that way, when you've done it the other way for a long period of time, you have to stop and think. And when you stop and think, you get slow. And when you get slow, you can't play to the level that you normally could. So I think my point and what your point is that when you bring in a bunch of newcomers, it's about Christmas before you're probably in sync, as opposed to trying to play Carolina in the second game of the season. So we know we'll have some ups and downs, but it is good to have Juan and KJ and Hunt back because at least there's three out there that know.
Yeah, and you reference those guys. I mean, especially KJ and DeJuan. It's not just a couple years. I mean, they've been here for for a long period of time. One of my favorite things about watching your program over the years is seeing the Devontae Grahams and Frank Masons and Ochais.
They get better.
Yeah, who it really early in their careers were not feature players necessarily, but by the end were great players. Are we still going to see that?
No.
That's gone.
No, I don't know that it's gone. Raquise Passmore could be that guy.
Okay.
Raquise Passmore is going to be really good. Is he good enough as a freshman to play starter minutes at a Kansas? Maybe not, but man, he's going to be really good. He reminds me of Ochai, physically, things like that. But when you look at us in recruiting, we've really done better than what a lot of people probably think we have done, because when the NCAA stuff came out in 2017, that eliminated us with every top 30 player in America for the next 6 years. For 6 years. We try, well, they're going on probation or this or that, or he's going to get fired. I mean, the things that were going on out there was ridiculous. And it was a platform created by the NCAA in large part. Now it needed to be investigated, but without question. But they put it on us pretty good. They charged us with more than what anybody else was charged with, saying that, didn't know and shouldn't have known. That's pretty harsh. So we had to recruit in a way that, okay, who are we going to recruit, which we know is not good enough right now, but if they're here a couple of years, they may get really good. And we got so lucky with Och. We got so lucky with CB. We got so lucky with Jay Will. We got so lucky with Juan. These type, and KJ now, these type of guys are not the one and done types that everybody judges your recruiting class on if you can go get. These are guys that by the time they're a third year, we'll put them against any one and done guy out there. And it's worked out pretty well for us. But the reality of it is now, those same kids that come now, if they don't play, they can go be eligible immediately. Right. If you don't pay them enough, they can go make more money somewhere else immediately. So I think you have to have a blend. I still think you got to go out and get the best. And now that we don't have anything hovering above us that will keep us from doing that, we need to recruit the very best. But with that being said, now the very best takes money. And then how much are you budgeted to do different things? And so the days of having a Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins on the same team, no, those days are done.
They don't fit in the same budget.
They don't. The salary cap isn't when everything kicks in. The salary cap isn't going to allow that. So you still got to be smart in how you go about doing it. which I don't know if there's an exact blueprint on how to do it, but you still need to get some kids that you can develop and be in your program, and hopefully we can still do that, but you still need to go out and get guys that are ready now, because the reality of it is the guys that you bank on being ready in 2 or 3 years, at Kansas, we can't wait 2 or 3 years to be good. We need to be good every year. So we have to have a blend.
You said something I want to go back to, though, when you started listing off all these guys. You said, we got lucky. I believe in luck, but I don't believe luck is a repeatable skill. You've developed so many players over your time that were guys, we listed off so many names that were not five-star guys that became top level. That's not luck. I mean,
maybe not luck once they get here, but the bottom line is the brand and playing at Kansas was attractive enough to some guys that, you know what, I want to be there, and I want to be one of those guys that does it at Kansas. And a lot of times that's from local type guys that grew up doing it, you know, the Travis Relfords of the world. I mean, the Tyrell Reeds. I mean, these guys were really big-time college players that weren't recruited at the level that, you know, the so-called experts and pundits would say, oh, man, he was a can't-miss guy. We've been fortunate on that. But you know, my staff does a good job working with the guys. There's no question about that. But during a time when we had to do it that way, Ochai Agbaji and CB were available. Mm-hmm. You know, there's been many times in the Kansas City area those guys don't come out every year. Yeah. So that was what I was talking about, good fortune.
Understand. So and I think the point that you bring up about, okay, so if you got
and Grady Dick, I mean, how about Grady Dick being I mean, fortunately, you know, he grew up with family members going to KU at a time where it was a little bit more difficult to recruit. Mm-hmm. That was enough to get him here.
You mentioned Relaford, and his name got brought up the other day because of the red shirt that he took. And is that still something that can be utilized?
Yeah. I actually think if somebody's not going to impact your program now, I think you're actually better off redshirting them if you have enough depth to do so, because playing a guy a little bit is probably a message that we could look somewhere else next year. Playing a guy 5 minutes or 7 minutes a game in many ways isn't as good as not playing a guy at all, because not playing at all, there's still the thought, well, if I was playing, I could be doing this and that. You know, well, if you are playing and you're not doing this and that, then maybe this isn't maybe they get impatient. So I still think red shirt is still a possibility as long as you have enough depth to get through a season. And last year obviously was a year in which we didn't have that, but I don't see that being the issue this year.
It's interesting too, because you see transfers coming from mid-majors, Coit being one of those players you think about who wasn't at a big time. I've heard him say many times, I'm playing with the best basketball players I've ever played with before. So I'm thinking of myself, if I'm a mid-major coach, I finally get a player like this, he goes for 20 a game, and then one of the big schools can go grab
absolutely.
him. That's part of the deal right?
It's actually part of the system.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to coaches at a mid-major type level, said, if you find a guy out there that's you don't think's quite ready, send him to us, and we'll just tell him we'll send him to you.
Wow.
You know, it's almost could potentially be kind of like a junior college.
Wow.
There's definitely, you know, things going on like that. It's and then you look at a coach at a mid-major level that no matter what, that kid develops, he's a stud, he does everything he's supposed to do, but then at the end of the day, there's still an opportunity to be impacted through NIL in a way that particular location could not do it. Mm-hmm. So that could be a reason why you leave. And then also there's a part of it saying, well, if you just stay and develop the league. Well, there's only so many guys that make the league. A lot of guys, this will be the most money they ever make in their lifetime, or at least the most money they make playing. maybe not in their lifetime, but the most money they make playing. So, I look at David McCormick. I would have given anything to have gotten David McCormick back another year. That was when NIL was just starting. We didn't really know what we were doing yet, all that stuff. And he leaves and goes overseas and makes $100,000 or $200,000. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if it had been a year later, we could have had David McCormick back another, So there'll be a lot of players like that moving forward too.
You scroll, tap, swipe, text, call, and do a lot more on your phone. None of us can fathom life without all the world's knowledge in our pocket. We use phones for just about everything. But when it comes to doing the bigger things, like streaming, gaming, and working, you shouldn't be limited to just your phone screen or mobile plan. You see, millions of Americans don't have home internet. They're forced to do everything on their phone or through their mobile service via a hotspot. Or they go to public spaces and use unsecure Wi-Fi, which can be problematic when dealing with personal or sensitive information. You deserve reliable home internet that fits your life and your budget. And right now, Internet Essentials Plus from Xfinity is free through the Affordable Connectivity Program. Get unlimited data and equipment included with no annual contract. Go to Xfinity.com/free to see if you qualify. Restrictions apply. After program participation ends, Comcast standard charges, taxes, and fees apply. May not be combined with other offers.
I had this patient. His cancer treatment had him in the hospital for a while. One day, he was telling me about his grandson and how a big night was coming up for him. So we arranged to make it a big night for my patient too. I sometimes wonder if I'm doing all I can. Then I help make a moment like this possible, and I know I am.
And I mean, I like that because, I look at how many good basketball players there are. The NBA is certainly at a different level, but we all feel like Division I college basketball is worth watching, right? You see guys that were stars in the Big 12 go star at Barcelona or something like that. The fact that you got a chance to keep a player like that around, I mean, that's a positive. Isn't it,
also something that's going to happen is there'll be more international kids come to play college basketball.
Because they can make more money here.
Make more money here than they can actually playing professionally where they're playing that short period of time. So there's going to be some other things going on that's going to change the landscape of how recruiting takes place.
I'm thinking back to just one example that comes to the top of my head is Remy Martin, a player that you had that was a transfer from a different school who was the guy, right? And he decided, tell me if I've got any of this part of the story wrong, but he wanted to go from being the guy at a team that couldn't win it all to being a guy on a team that could win it all. But it seemed like that transition was very difficult to figure out, okay, when do I get my shot? When do I play? And once you guys got that balance figured out, he helped you win a national title. Is that hard, taking guys that are scoring 20 a game at Northern Illinois and then fitting them into a team where everybody's good?
Sure. That I say that all too. Your job when you play is to make sure the other four guys are better by your presence out there on the court. We talked about that yesterday in film. And I think they understand that. And the other thing is, that's the way it's going to be if they're good enough to go to the next level. They're not going to be the guy. Yeah. They got to find out how to make the guy's job easier. It's one thing that CB and some of those guys have been great at. But that's how it works. And going at a place where there's four other good guys on the court with you at the same time actually prepares you for that. But people may say, well, I need to score more points, or I need to do this. You know what you need to do is just play your butt off and make sure we win. That's the best thing you can do to help your chances, because that'll be your role at the next level. So you're learning how to do your role now, as opposed to waiting. But Remy, I'm telling you what, we don't win it without him.
Yeah,
and that dude was so confident, so cocky, so fun, and had his own idea on how things ran because he was so used to doing it in his own way. And this place was so good for him because it saw him see things differently, but he was so good for us. Gave us personality, gave us fun. And then he told me all along. I sat down and I sat down and told him because he had the knee issue or whatever, and it was enough to keep him from being himself, but not enough to keep him from playing. And I sat down, I talked to him. I said, "Why don't you just take a month off?" He said, "Okay." And I'm like, "Damn, he actually said okay." And he took a month off, and he said, "I'll be ready when I get healthy." And I said, "Well, I hope so." And he came back, and he's the MVP of the Big 12 tournament, MVP of the Midwest Regional, and scores 11 points in the second half, where we don't beat Carolina, and made plays you don't coach. I mean that's the thing about it. So he was the perfect fit. But he would be the first to tell you it took him a while to adjust, but he was the perfect fit.
He was one of those guys too that, to me, was in the era of redefining what a good shot is. 'Cause sometimes a guy takes a shot and you're thinking, oh. And I know you've always said, just because a shot goes in doesn't determine if it's a good shot or not.
It's a good or bad shot when it leaves your hand.
Yeah. Have you had to change your definition of what a good shot is, though, over the last few years?
Last few years?
Or I don't know, since the whole Steph Curry thing and all, the three-pointer has become
I would say change it philosophically on what goals are. Field goal percentage is something that everybody wants to do. But what is it actually a good shot with what the analytics actually say now, as opposed to what was a good shot before? Mm-hmm. And depending on your talent level, your skill set level, all that stuff. Like last year, we probably shot less than 30% of our shots were threes, which is awful.
Yeah.
But it was probably the way we need to play. Mm-hmm. This year, I'm hoping that number's 38, 40%, which will open the court, make things easier for Hunt. A lot of things that'll be positive. But effective field goal percentage is a little bit different than field goal percentage, and certainly understanding that and studying that, I think is important. You still need to get layups. You still need to get easy shots, but shooting more threes, I actually think that's kind of the way it's got to be.
You've got to feel pretty good about the guys you have that can do that this year. Just looking at,
I feel better. Yeah, I feel better. I think Zeke, Ryland, Diggy definitely add something to that without question. But I also think Juan's better. I think when we used to play traditional 3 out, 2 in, I'd say, well, 2 of the 3 got to be able to stretch the defense. Now, when we play 4 around 1, 3 of the 4 have to be able to stretch the defense, and probably a 4th needs to be your big guy, which Hunt can do some. So, yeah, it's a different, our offense, the way we play now compared to how we looked when we first got here is, it's polar opposite. We've definitely evolved, which we needed to, in ways that I think is more adept with how the game is played today.
You mentioned Juan. I got to talk to him at Big 12 Media Day down in Kansas City. He told me he's put on some weight. He's gotten stronger this offseason. How big of a priority was that? He was pretty proud of that.
So he's gone from 170 to 173. I don't know. I'll have to ask him about that.
Okay. I figured that was something you guys were on top.
To be honest with you, that hasn't been one of the big bragging points of of Ramsey, our strength coach, coming in. Hey, coach, guess what? Juan is up 3 pounds. That hasn't. He said, guys have gained weight and verticals improved and things like that, but that hasn't been one of the things that he talks about a lot.
I mean, was that? I didn't. It interested me because he brought it up on his own, and he always looked like a skinny guy, but
he is a skinny guy. Yeah. But you may be right. He's there's no question he's gotten stronger.
Yeah.
But as far as actually putting on weight, I don't really know if he does that. Maybe he's gotten away from his his favorite meal being soda pop and Doritos. Maybe he's improved on that
I'll try to
as
talk
much
to my
as
son
anything.
about that. Let's see if we could get him on that diet too. You mentioned his shooting though. He did strike me at least last year even as a guy though. If you left him open, he would knock it down. Is it more than that now, or is that still kind of where you see him being?
The Arkansas game was a bad game. We didn't have anything going. We couldn't run offense with the way that we played, and we weren't prepared to. But because we had some guys missing, but he got 26 on his own. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't a good sign nobody else made these shots, but it was a good sign for him that, you know what, he's capable. And he's always been capable. He'd rather somebody else do it. And I get such a kick out of people. And granted, I think the same thing. When I watch the Chiefs play or the or whatever, we all say, well, why don't? Well, the bottom line is people said the same thing about Juan too. Well, why didn't he look to score? And I talked to him last year. I said, Juan, you know what wins for you more than anybody else does. Why don't you just be who you are? And as opposed to him hearing he needs to do more this or that, because who he is good enough. Now, do I wish he'd probably be more aggressive at times? Yes, but he does enough stuff for us that I trust him enough to, hey, just be who you are.
He always has seemed so instinctive. His ability to anticipate even his ability to pick pockets.
I actually think that he has always been that, but he's got to get back to being that more. I think so often people try to say, well, you need to do this and that. You know what he needs to do? He needs to be the guy that would cut off the head of the snake defensively whenever he was playing against another guard. That's what he needs to be. He does that, the other stuff will fall into place. I actually thought last year we took a step backwards defensively. One, playing way too many minutes, but two, thinking he needs to do more in other areas, just wear he out. He needs to get back to being who he is, and that is an instinctive, ball-hawking, anticipating dude with the best hands in college basketball. And if he does that, you watch how good he'll play. And he can do it in less time and be fresher because we have more depth this year.
One guy I want to ask you about as well before we run out of time is KJ, because he's another one of those guys that's been in the program and just seems like he continues to develop. What are you expecting from him this year? And maybe there's just so many great things to say about him, but what do you love the most about him? What are you expecting this year?
He's gotten better. Yeah. He's gotten better. He shoots it better. He made a pull up 15-footer the other night. It looked great. He hasn't looked to do that. I think he needs to look to do that more. The thing I would say, I love his game. He needs to rebound the ball more. He needs to play to his athletic ability even more. He can be a better runner in transition and post early guy. He can do so many things that puts pressure on the defense that I don't think he does as much as he's capable of doing, but he still does a lot. I think that his ball handling, his playmaking, everything has improved so much. He's the best we have bringing it in transition, including Juan. Juan would tell you, hey, get the ball to KJ.
Really?
Let's go. Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that. Now, Juan's good at it, but Juan's not a speed point guard. KJ is, when you got a four-man guard in KJ, that could be an advantage to Kansas. I love it when he rebounds it to bring it. That's one reason why I wanted to rebound more is I'm selfish. We're better in transition when he does. But yeah, he's gotten a lot better. But I do think there's some things he can do and tighten some things up to play to his athletic ability even more than he does, and he does at a pretty high clip right now.
How many big guys have you had in your career like that? I feel like early when you came here, you would tell me that I love having enough guards out there where it's just get it to whichever guard and go.
Oh yeah, that's how I want to play.
Yeah.
Now that's not how it plays out all the time, but the reality and to be honest with you, when you play against good teams late in the season, you don't get as much transition. You got to find a way to score in the half court and things like that. But I think whoever gets it brings it. I think that's the best way to play. But
But to have a 4 that can do that, how many times have you had those kind of guys?
We probably had some that didn't do it as much as what they could. The one that comes to mind the most that was great at it was Julian.
Yeah.
Julian was and then the best that we've had, even though wasn't a 4-man, but we played him at the 4, was Josh. Josh Jackson was a different level talent, guys. And the things that he could do, pushing the ball in transition and creating for others, and he was so instinctive and such a good passer. We've had some guys like that, but KJ's becoming in that same mold as those two.
It's amazing. Well, Coach, you've got this big game coming up on Friday against North Carolina. I guess we'll bring it back home to that. You mentioned this is it's like almost like a measuring stick, right? Like you get to see where you're at now, and then we'll look back at the end of the season and say, where are these two teams from that point? What are you most interested in seeing on Friday night?
Well, I think there's some things when the lights are really on, how different guys will react to those situations. That'll be good. And I'm sure Hubert will say the same thing. But I'd like to see how tough we are. And I don't mean tough as in physical. I'm talking about, when things get hot in the kitchen, how do we react coming out of a timeout? What type of mindset do we have? Do we stick together? Do we fray? A lot of things like that. The great thing about games like this is they do matter, but not near as much on the big scale as what people think they do. It's an opportunity for us to figure out who we are and get better. Football's such you can't. There's no other way to do it. But when you're playing 12 games and you lose a big game early, you only got a chance to lose one more game, still be considered to be part of the playoff. And that kind of how it works. And in basketball, it doesn't work like that. So, which is good. So how do we get better? And then how do you showcase two historical programs that are so intertwined with the history and the relevance of college basketball? Dean Smith went to school here. Mm-hmm. Roy Williams graduated from there and was assistant coach there. There are so many great. Brad Fredericks is assistant coach at Carolina. And of course, his father, Bob, was a beloved athletic director here. There are so many things that basically connect the two programs. And I actually believe Larry Brown graduated from there and won a national championship here. That bring this thing together where it'll be a very, very high intensity but respectful game, which is the way it should be. So I think it'll be fun for everybody.
It's great that you brought all that up. I was sitting there with my 14-year-old son watching your last game and telling him about this game coming up, and it blows my mind that I got a 14-year-old that doesn't know that Roy Williams coached here. I'm like, boy, I've done a poor job of educating him on his history. But it's before his time. But I got to meet Michael Jordan at the first ever Roy Williams basketball camp here because he brought Jordan. Like those connections that you're talking about, the respect of the history of these two programs is really something that elevates the game.
No question. And if you play them all the time, I think sometimes that can go a little bit unnoticed. Like to me, the Kentucky game, when we played Kentucky home and home, it became more about the present teams because we had played them enough in recent memory. Mm-hmm. And you forget that, Adolph Rupp was the backup point guard on the 22 and 23 team that won national championship. You start forgetting about that stuff. We haven't played Carolina enough. I don't forget about that stuff. And I think everybody in attendance will respect it. And the building should be on fire. It should be turned up. So they had kids camping out yesterday. There was like I'm not exaggerating. I went down there and I talked to some of them, and a minimum of 100 and maybe up to 130 kids camping out. Each kid represents 30 kids.
Yeah,
that's 3,500 kids that were camping out on Tuesday for the game Friday. It'll be turned up on Friday.
It's great to have these games on campus. It's going to be interesting to see the way the thing keeps evolving, but Friday night's going to be a lot of fun. Coach, thank you so much for the time. As always, great insight on a lot of topics, and good luck on Friday night.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
That is head coach Bill Self, and that is going to do it for this edition of the Jayhawker Podcast.